everyone to video 1.2, the final part of the tax company PC thing. You're probably super glad we're done with this because it is a lot of work and I know it was kind of tedious, but I assure you it will be actually really valuable in the long run because you'll probably understand holistically how a project works better than most people in the IT industry at this point because most of the time you don't get to see the whole picture like what you've gotten to see where you've seen the customer over here, they work with the manager sends some stuff over to the technician works with the customer, finally they go back and forth, and the engineer or technician then sends the deliverables over and all that kind of stuff, and how the customer ends up actually signing off on the paperwork. I know a project that would actually be real world, this would have taken actually even weeks. I mean, this might have taken actually not even weeks. It might have even taken over a month or two, even depending on how long people took to get back to you, to actually communicate and wait for the emails, because we were able to, do this in a matter of minutes where you send the email, they send the email back, but in the real world, it would have taken a very long time. There would have been other hoops you'd have to jump through in the real world, like getting approvals for budgets and all kinds of extra steps. This was kind of a very, very expedited version of what it would have been. And we did it in, less than 10 hours or so, a whole project, which would have taken, months, potentially, at least 3 weeks or so, let's just say, to be safe. So you've really got kind of a crash course on how this works. So now that you understand a small project, it wouldn't be as big of a deal to understand a large project. You can kind of extrapolate from here, and if you get thrown into a large project, it won't be as big of a deal at that point. So with that said, we're going to finish the last phase of this project, which is Bill at this point, Ted communicating to the customer, which is Bill, and letting them know how the payment terms work. So I'm just going to paste it into Outlook. So we're over in Ted's email right here. So this is Ted sending an email to the customer, right? So we're going to go into here. We're going to create a new email. We're going to paste it in here. Again, you'll have to type this in yourself. So we're basically saying, to the customer that I'm glad that you've been able to understand everything. You signed the statement of work, which is great. The next step is to make the initial payment. So there's usually some kind of payment agreement where they make like the first installment of payment, or they'll pay the first, month payment or whatever it is. It depends on whatever the manager's going to work out with Bill, which we're not going to get into all that because we don't need to be finance experts in this whole thing. So I'm just not going to go into all that. And then this is just a little bit of lingo. So ACH is an automatic clearinghouse. That's just a financial term. It's just a way to transfer money. Wire transfer is another way to transfer money. A check or a credit card is another way that they could have made the payment. And so here's some other corporate lingo you'll hear, like there's an accounts receivable person. So the accounts receivable person is someone that basically essentially pays. Accounts payable is someone who pays the bills. Accounts receivable is someone who receives payment. So you might see it in emails or something like that. You might have an accounts receivable person that creates a help desk ticket. It's just a department within finance, right? So the accounts receivable person is probably the person that will actually receive payment. And then net 30 is just basically saying that from the time the customer receives the bill from Artisan Consulting, they have 30 days to pay that invoice. So, and a purchase order is basically an internal document that the company has. So the customer will probably have to keep track of expenses. So in their accounting system, they'll have like PO number 3004 that is allocated to this project. So it's a way for them to keep track of things. So when you send them an invoice, you might put in purchase order 3004. And we're not going to get into like actually sending them an invoice. This is just more like just wrapping up this project, just so you understand that there's some closure with this, that in order to actually start working on the project, which is the implementation phase, there's so many phases in the pre-sales phase, right? So I mean, this is all just to get to the point of now being able to order the stuff and build the PCs and build the desktop and build the little network for the Comcast modem and all that kind of stuff, right? All of that is not possible if you don't get to this point of receiving payment. So these were all pre-sales activities where the customer signed off on the project. So depending on where you're at, you may never even see some of this stuff. You might come into a project that has already gone through all this and you just start doing the work, but you'll understand all the background now when you start doing work, that okay, all this stuff has happened to make this possible. And if you have to come in and help with doing some of the pre-sales work, like creating the SOW or the HLD or doing research for it or talking to a customer or whatever, it'll now make a lot of sense. So with that said, I'm going to send this over to customer.trainee. So I'm just going to copy that. And I'm just going to send this as payment terms or payment steps. And I'm going to send that over to the customer who is going to receive it. So at this point, Bill's going to receive it and say, okay, so I've got this thing I got to do as far as making the first payment. So at that point, the next step will be for Bill to reply to Ted. So again, just for financial parts, just so you complete the cycle, the accounts receivable person from Artisan Consulting, who's going to receive payments, is going to talk to the accounts payable person at Bill's tax haven, because accounts payable pays the bill, accounts receivable receives payment, right? So from Artisan Consulting, the AR person is going to be receiving the payment from the accounts payable person at Bill's tax haven. So at this point, we're going to reply back and we're going to paste this in. Of course, you're going to have to manually type this in. So Bill is basically saying, please ask Marlena to email Justin Smith, who's his finance person or accounts payable person, and then generally, you're going to put some kind of email or phone number. And you'll see this a lot, like via whatever. It's just basically saying like Justin can be reached through this email or through this phone number. You'll see people say via. It's just another way of saying with or through this email. So send that out. And so now you've got this final email where the customer has basically acknowledged that and is asking you to have your person who handles vendors and payments to email Bill's person that handles finance. So essentially, everything is now well underway, right? So this is perfect. And then the last step will be where Ted will at this point forward this. So I'm going to go up to here and forward this email to trainee01. I'm just going to say FY payment is secured, please move forward. I mean, technically payment isn't secured yet. We haven't received the payment, but the customer has committed and has gone all the way of giving you the contact information for who's going to be actually making the payment. So this is as close as you're going to get. So at this point, your manager would let you know, like, okay, you can start moving forward with, procurement and all that kind of stuff. And also keep in mind, in a larger company, there's actually going to be a whole different team that orders things. So you're not going to be the person that goes to a website. Like, you're not going to go to Dell.com and actually order this stuff. You might have gone there to see how much things cost, but you might put just the bill of materials together and hand it off to a different team that actually is a procurement team that actually orders things, or they might work with vendors and things of that nature. So the bigger the company you get, the more siloed it gets, which just basically means, like, silo is just basically saying that you have specialized people that only do one thing. So only purchasing, or only accounts payable, or only accounts receivable. Or you might, in a smaller team, have someone who does purchasing, AR, and AP, and may also do some IT support or whatever, right? I mean, when you have a small company, you have to kind of wear multiple hats. When you have a large company, you tend to be very specialized. So that's just something to keep in mind overall. At this point, we're actually done with everything. This whole project life cycle is complete. We're completely done with Bill. He has now gotten to the point of being able to move forward with the implementation. And the implementation really wouldn't have made sense to talk through at this point, because, as far as doing the technical steps, you really had to have a better background about staging computers and things of that nature, which is actually what you're going to be learning throughout this curriculum. So think of this whole Bill's Tax Haven project as understanding more of, like, why customers actually want technology solutions and what some of the technology solutions are. So it's more like the why and the what, and now moving forward in the next part of the curriculum and everything, you're going to learn how to do all this stuff. So the why and the what is what's been covered so far as overall understanding about customers, and then now we're going to get into all the nitty-gritty details about how you actually do these steps. So that's it. Nice work. You're all done with this particular project. So we're going to move on to the next part of the curriculum. Thanks again for your time. We'll talk soon.